Nobody does what I do. I worked on this hit TV show from 2004 to 2007 starring 8-time Emmy Award-winning presenter Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator. To boil it down to its basics, I was a human to hard surface adaptation support design specialist. The victims weren't real, but the chairs were. When Chris Hansen points at that chair and he says, "Why don't you have a seat right here?" It's all eyes on that chair. I was there to make sure that that moment was magical for the audience and all of the crew members, and that meant a lot to me. There was a lot of sleepless nights here at the Chair House, a lot of pre-production and research went into every episode to be able to make the perfect chair for the pedophiles. Each chair was custom made for each pedophile based on their height and their weight. It wasn't to make them comfortable, it was actually quite the contrary. Say a pedophile weighing 200 pounds, about 5'6", we would make the legs of the stool 2 feet and 9 inches, just so their toes are barely floating. And the seat would be maybe a little too soft for this gentleman, barely sanded, barely finished. Because I knew in advance that some of these pedophiles would be sitting in the devices unclothed. I was hoping for a few splinters. Raw wood against raw wood doesn't feel very good. And then of course, they looked immaculate. And those aren't my words, those are Chris Hansen's. The set is my gallery. I sculpt with cushions and I paint with upholstery. Each seam is a carefully planned out brushstroke. I really just wanted my work to touch people in the same way that these pedophiles try to touch these kids. When it comes to these devices, I really don't discriminate. It could be a high back throne or just a simple lawn chair. Each device tells its own individual and unique story, just like the pedophiles. Without the chairs, there's no pause, there's no tension, there's no release. Without the devices, the show is no more than just a bunch of men chasing each other around, and that's just Scooby-Doo. You don't shit standing up, do you? Like many people, my passion started in early childhood. Firstly, I was born in a chair. My first word was chair while I was sitting in a chair. I lost my virginity in a chair. Yeah, Sally Dawson. The 11th grade prom, I was sitting in a chair and she walked right by me. She brushed up on my shoulder and she looked back at me and I made cum in my pants. The first time that I explored my bi-curiosity was in a chair. I was a homeless man on the bus. I proposed to my wife in a chair. I was married in a chair. I watched the birth of my daughter in a chair. My wife told me she was cheating on me while I was sitting in a chair, and I lost custody of my daughter while I was in a chair. And then we got divorced while I was in a chair. I found out that the lump on my testicle was non-cancerous while I was sitting in a chair. It was just from the homeless guy. Luckily, I have a cream for it. God willing, I'll die in a chair. I've actually been designing my own device, a seated coffin, if you will, designing it for when I eventually take the long sit.
So that's fantastic and all the information you've shared, but if we could just get back to the original question, how exactly did you get into this business with the talents and the aspirations?
Oh, my cousin Ethan, he's a camera operator, and after they shot the pilot, they knew that they would need somebody with my expertise to come in and help them out. And it's actually kind of weird, and I'm not saying he stole it, but after I came in for the second episode, I brought in my device, I handed it to Chris Hansen, I said, "Hey, why don't you take a seat right here?" And wouldn't you know it, what's his catchphrase for the remainder of the show? The show has been wrapped for a little over 15 years, and the money's kind of drying up, and the Chair House certainly isn't getting any cheaper. It's kind of inspired me to get back into the entertainment industry, pursuing a second passion of mine, stand-up.